solutions to any time travel paradoxes once again come into play quite simply when based on a particular axiom, which is that all knowledge and all power is in all places at all times. There's one paradox that you hear of in time travel, which is the grandfather paradox, in which people propose the scenario in which they go back in time and kill their grandfather. And then as a consequence of that, they say, well, they never would have been able to go back in time because their grandfather would have been killed, and it creates a paradox, right? So it's this loop that you can't win, because if you were to go back in time and kill your own grandfather, then how would your grandfather produce their children, which would then lead to your birth, right? And so therein lies the paradox that they prevent each other from happening. And of course, then some propose the idea of alternate timelines, which is a little bit closer to the understanding of what happens when all knowledge and all power is in all places at all times. These come from what I call the omnifactors. And the solution here is, well, first, some say that if you were to go back in time, yes, you would go back into the timeline of that past, but then the killing of the grandfather would then split off into another different type of future timeline that you would go into. The one that you left from where you were alive already exists, but the going back in time and killing of your own grandfather would then splinter into a new timeline. However, understanding that all knowledge and all power is in all places at all times, none of this needs to be necessary. Just again, it's becoming more and more apparent to me that the name of the movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, is actually one of the most apt descriptions of our existence that I can help to use along with these types of discussions. And it's because of the fact that everything is everywhere all at once. If we take this as an axiom that all knowledge and all power is in all places at all times, then what we're finding is that yes, you can go back into the past, and yes, you can kill your grandfather, and yes, from that point on, there would be the consequences of that moving forward. You could, if you stayed in that timeline, you would move forward in that from there and get to see the consequences, that's if you were stuck there, of this timeline moving forward without you being born. Some others say that because of the resonance of you having to have been in existence, then in some other way, maybe not perhaps from those particular parents, you would come into existence. It gets a little bit complicated there. At least in my thought, I haven't really thought about that one, but I understand where people who speak about that are coming from. But again, understanding all knowledge and all power is in all places at all times, what you can see from this understanding is that everything that is possible is extant. And so therefore there needs not be any kind of different explanations for whether or not different branches of time come out, or if you create a different timeline. Simply from wherever you start and whatever is done there moves forward into, if you would like to say, a reality. But it all is extant now. I've heard it before described as time as a plateau. I haven't really looked into the meaning of that, but I'm intuitively feeling that it is of the same understanding that I'm coming from. That simply from where you are and as you move forward, everything is simply a consequence of what you're feeling, thinking, speaking, and doing. And that's in a three-dimensional reality or existence as the one that we're in now. So the whole grandfather paradox really disappears, and it shows that time travel is possible both in the past and to the future, and that there are simply alternative realities in which you can place yourself into, past, present, and future, which have various different things going on. You could go into a time that is parallel, or a dimension that's parallel to ours currently right now, and have different things completely going on with replicas or your clones or your or other manifestations of yourself. But none of it requires that something gets destroyed in the process. It's simply a changing of channels. It's simply the moving from one experience to another. And that is the essence of real time travel, which even in itself, in a lot of ways, could be a misnomer, because in the idea that, like the name of the movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, you're not necessarily traveling or moving anywhere. Everything is here all at once. You're simply shifting your perspective as an eternal being, which is part of the one eternal being, and simply shifting into that experience. It's just like stepping into, if you were to walk into a movie theater at any point in time during the film. That's it. You would just come into it at that point. And that simply is the essence of time travel, which it really is simply about experiential shifting. And so we can get rid of those ideas of the grandfather paradox, or any confusion or misconceptions about whether time travel is possible or not. It is, except maybe the term time travel is not the best for calling that ability what it is. And the idea too about time travel, for why a lot of people have these paradoxes, comes also in to putting limitations on existence, which is the biggest issue altogether of so many things, that there's not enough to go around. The reason why people want to change things in the past is to change world events or change things in their lives, when all they simply have to do is shift into that reality in which they want to experience things as they are. And that, interestingly enough, one of the ways that it starts is with your feelings, meaning emotions. There's somewhat of a hierarchy, and I put it into an acronym which is a little bit backwards, because it uses a word, W.A.T.E.R, W-A.T.E.R, which is words, actions, thoughts, emotions, and reality. And really, the reality should be tagged on either end. It should be our water. And because you start with the reality, it's sort of like a reverse engineering of where you want to get to. You start with the reality of where you want to get to, and then you use words, actions, thoughts, and emotions to get to that reality. Well, really, you start with the reality, and if we spell the word water backwards, we start with the reality that we want. We put the emotions into it, right? So we put the emotions into it. The emotions become the thoughts. The thoughts becomes the actions and the words that are dealing with that. And really, that still is a little bit out of order, because words before actions, but words and actions are similar, because speaking is an act in itself. So in order to travel or to move, or really, if we want to get rid of those ideas of space-time, simply to experience, then we mentally and emotionally and thoughtfully construct those experiences that we want to have, and build it just like you would anything else in great detail, and that's how you bring it into existence. So water, right? Words, actions, thoughts, emotions, that's reality.